noise. Now here's the thing. As you probably do as you're on your PC or you're on your phone or anything else, it makes a lot of noise. You listen to it in various ways. You might have your Skullcandy, or you might have something a little bit more fancy depending on who you are or what you like to listen to. And well, I'm just going through sort of basics for people that kind of want to have something a little nicer but are unsure of what to do or how to go about it, because you know, this is new territory for some people. Everybody starts off somewhere and they want to know a couple of things. So I'm going to say this now. Elle, please do forgive me if I make any mistakes, and feel free to correct me down in the comments below, as I know you will. But anyway, today what we're talking about is headphones. And more to the point, what the hell do you need for them? All this and more after that intro. So let's say you got yourself some Noice headphones. Now obviously most of you probably have something like this, you know, dirty buds, you should call them, you know. Literally, in-ear buds, maybe with a microphone if they're really fancy. They sound good enough. The problem with these is they are ridiculously narrow. Now what we mean by narrow is, you may notice that if you went from say these to these, the noise sounds like from this to really wide. That's sort of what it is when you go from these to these. So what you can do as a big improvement is get a decent pair of over-ears. This doesn't always count true. These are not a decent pair of over-ears. I do not recommend these. I daily drove these forever. These are uncomfortable as hell. Do not get these. These are terrible. Like, you might enjoy the way they sound, but they really are terrible. But going back to your in-ear buds, you know, you got various types, and these aren't necessarily bad. You can get really good in-ear buds. Just look at the Apple AirPods. I'm trying to think whichever generation they are. They're really nice, and they sound pretty decent. But that's not the only thing you can do with them. With something like this, you can, well, for a start, get yourself a nice pair of dirty buds. They don't necessarily have to be expensive. These are the KZ ZSTs. I'm not really sure what KZ you'll have in your area, but generally speaking, KZ, they're actually a really good brand. They're a Chinese brand, and at first glance you'd think this is typical Chinese crap, let's be honest. But no, these aren't. These are actually really nicely built. They come in various ones. I think I have the ES4s as well, but I really prefer these ZSTs because, come on, look at the colours. They're pretty. They're really pretty, and they actually sound way better than they have any right to. Like, these only cost a couple of quid, but they are ridiculously nice. And you just slap on a small equalisation as well. For what? I think I got these for 15 quid. So 15 quid, 20 bucks, a couple more if you're Australian. They're ridiculously cheap. They sound great. And more to the point, with small EQ, these actually really do sing. But, damn it, it still sounds terrible. Now what else you can do with something like this is pair it up with one of these. These are DACs. They are, well, DAC and amps. These are high-res ones, so you don't necessarily need one of these. But a brief explanation of what a DAC is a DAC is a digital to audio converter. So basically, you know how all your files, like your MP3s, are stored in, their file, which means they're stored in binary, and all a DAC does is take that file that's ones and zeros and it turns it into an analog signal, aka a bunch of noise, which you can then listen to through these. Now I think, well, why do you need a really fancy one like this? Well, we'll get to that in a moment. So first thing you can try and do is get a DAC that can actually get the most out of what file you're playing, because you may not necessarily be playing MP3s. You might play something like, for example, FLACs, which I'm trying to think what the actual thing, but they're also known as lossless audio, whereas MP3 is really compressed. It's like a JPEG. It's a very low quality JPEG versus, let's say, a PNG or a bitmap or something that's ridiculously high res. You will notice the difference between them. You know, it may take a while, it may take you a few times to notice it, but you will eventually notice the difference. You'll see the extra pixels, you'll hear the extra noise. Now, the same thing goes between MP3s and FLACs. So MP3s, you won't really hear much difference between MP3 and a FLAC on these, but they do have a lot more stuff in them. For example, if you say got a much nicer pair of headphones than these, and you were listening to, my favourite example for this is David Bowie's Ashes to Ashes. On the MP3 version, yeah, it sounds alright, but on a FLAC version you can actually make out the extra instruments in the background, such as the maracas, which, trust me, there's maracas in it. If there's not maracas, I'd love to know what it is that sounds like maracas in it. But there's maracas in the background that you will hear if you've got a high resolution version of it. So okay, so you've got some nice FLACs, you've got your headphones, they still sound terrible, because the other thing that you do need, as I was going back to, is the DAC, and more to the point, the amp. Now the DAC part, like I said, actually converts the file, but the amp is what drives your headphones. So you can go ahead and plug all of these into the same headphone jack. The problem is, these are not equal because of the headphone jack. The thing that you need is the amp to drive all of these. Now, for example, these are portable earbuds. These have got what's called a very low, I can't remember its impedance or resistance, either way, it's measured in ohms. This is super layman's, and there's a whole bunch more at play, but we're going to go into this in the layman version. Now say, because these are portable, I'm just going to guess these are 10 ohms or something like that. They probably are, because they're only portable drivers, they don't require a lot of power to drive them. Now these, on the other hand, are 62 ohms, and these are really nice headphones, so I really rate these. These are AKG K712 Pros, the last good AKG headphones, because AKG got bought by a whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, but the difference between these is night and day, and these require a lot more power to drive them. Now it doesn't necessarily mean that you require a bunch of power to drive really nice headphones, but you'll find a vast majority of them do require a lot more ohms to drive. And then you're also getting into other stuff. So let's start off with these two. These are my two personal DACs. Now this is the desktop DAC that I usually use, and this is my wireless and Bluetooth one. Now this one I usually use with the little PC here, as well as with my phone, because this has got Bluetooth on it. This is the one that I use for my desktop because it's not wireless, it is simply a DAC inside a case. Now what this does, turns your ones and zeros into very nice things. But it's also got a very nice analog audio knob. So you can go ahead and control it on analog. It's a really nice little feature that we're not going to get into too much. But anyway, what these can do is, whereas your standard audio on, say, your phone or even your laptop or your desktop, the jacks on the back of it will generally output at 48 kilohertz, 16, or if you're lucky, 24-bit. These can do up to 32-bit, 384 kilohertz, which is it's a lot bigger, which means these can drive much higher resolution songs. If you have a FLAC that is a ridiculously high resolution, these can actually drive it, because it can decode it fast enough. These are sort of like GPUs but for audio. It's almost a wonder why we don't really have audio cards, but then again the point is not many people actually require something that require the kind of power where these would come into play. But the other things that these do have is their amps that are built into them, and they've also got various ports that we'll go ahead and get into now. I'll put them so they're both the same way. Now you see this one here, the bigger of the two, that's your 3.5mm. That's a standard cable, this one that you can basically plug into anything. Now that's pretty good, but it's also got balanced. Now balanced, well, for various reasons, it does sound a little bit better than auxiliary or 3.5, because it actually plays, rather than having a single ground and then one for each one of your headphones, it's got two grounds. It doesn't help that this has got three poles as well as a ground, because it's got a microphone in it. But if this was balanced, for example, it would have two grounds as well as two positives. So you'd have left and right positive, left and right ground. Now, whilst that doesn't sound like a great thing, what that does allow you to do is drive a lot more power through them, which means the balanced on these, whereas these would generally most of the time only drive auxiliary headphones or something like that. Doesn't require too much power, or if it does require much power, these aren't going to push it. You can also drive balanced, which means if you say, have a pair of, let's be generous, let's say HD 600s, really nice Sennheiser headphones, you can plug them into that balanced output, and it will make them sing because it has got the power to do so. It's absolutely amazing, and I really cannot get over how cool it is. So that's a nice little detail about these. It's the reason why it has it. Now the other thing that you have to look for is how powerful the amp is, and that's a whole nother discussion which I'm not going to get into because I will make this video forever long. But essentially, you need to think of audio more as a chain. You go from what file you're playing, so if you're playing an MP3, you don't really need something like this. You can play it off your phone, it'll generally work fine. You might want something better, you may not necessarily want one of these, you might be able to get one of those dongle DACs like you usually see, which is either USB Type A or USB Type C that goes into your phone or into your laptop, and that'll give it a bit more power, which you might need to drive better headphones. But like I say, audio is a chain. It's always the weakest link that will give way. So if you're playing MP3s and everything else is really awesome, it doesn't matter because you're still playing MP3s. If you're playing FLACs and you're playing it through one of these, and then you're playing it through some really terrible headphones, not these, but actually terrible headphones, then yeah, it's going to sound terrible because your headphones are really what's going to make it. But if you're playing FLACs and you're listening through good headphones, well then the issue that you might have is you don't have a good DAC, or you might not have a good amp, which means they'll sound pretty flat and they don't have the great vibrance, the great soundstage that it should have. But most of the time, for general point of reference, 80% of the difference is going to come from your headphones. The last 20% is between your DAC, the file that you're using, and everything else. There's a lot more information on this, and I really do recommend that you go and look it up. But that's sort of the general gist on what you need to do. You need to have the right files, which can be a bit of a pain, because FLACs in particular are, for some reason, ridiculously difficult to find. I don't know why they're so difficult to find, but for the most part, they're pretty difficult to find. But I will try and leave. I will leave a link in the description for Cubos. I don't know how the hell you say it. Anyway, they're an online record. I don't know what the hell you call them. Music store. Anyway, they sell FLACs. They sell high resolution FLACs, and that's where I get a lot of my music from. So, you start off with your FLACs, and then you work your way up to getting stuff that can play the FLACs to their full potential. There's one logo you'll see a lot is this high-res audio. Now, what that essentially means is it's high-resolution FLACs that are high-res, generally considered, I think it's 24 bits at 48 kilohertz, 100 kilohertz, 24-bit FLACs. That's generally when you start heading towards high-res. But as you move up and up and up, it gets better and better and better. Now these two here, these cost roughly the same. I think this was £90, this was £85. Honestly, if you are just starting out, I'd recommend this. This is a Fiio BTR5. This is a ridiculously capable little glass nugget. Like, this can drive some beefy headphones that generally require a lot more power than this thing is supposed to give out. And yet it can still do them absolutely flawlessly thanks to the balance, as well as the other cool things about this. This is a really cool device, not to mention it's got Bluetooth 5.0, which means you can plug it into your PC, use it as a USB DAC, or you can unplug it and it will sync straight to your phone. Really nice. I recommend this if you're a first time buyer. So then you've got yourself your files, you've got yourself a nice headphone plate, and then to top it all off, you want a pair of nice headphones. Now what I'd also recommend if you are starting out, these HD 280 Pros. Why do I recommend these over Open Max? Simple factor is these are really nice. They're built pretty well. Yeah, they're I'm not gonna lie, they're ugly. They're fugly. Fugly for a reason, but the thing is, these are really good headphones. They sound absolutely fine. A little heavy on the bass, but nowhere near as heavy on the bass as some people might prefer. These are also 62 ohms, and these can be driven quite easily by something like this. And to put it nicely, these sound amazing. Now, the thing with headphones is price doesn't necessarily equate good noise. For example, you've got Beats, which a lot of people tell us, oh, they're really good. And they're only really good because they haven't heard better. The problem with Beats is they are ridiculously bassy, and they just go ahead and muddy out a lot of the rest of it. If you are into bass, that's perfectly fine, that's perfectly valid. But if you do want to try something a bit more nuanced, if you want to get more out of your music, you want to hear stuff that you didn't know was there before, you want to go for something else. Go for something like AKG, Sennheiser, I'm trying to think. Yeah, people like that. There are more, there's a lot more. But those are just a couple that come straight to head. Okay, so you've got yourself a DAC, you've got yourself some headphones, you've got yourself some nice files. Hopefully you've got yourself a DAC that can go ahead and play stuff, so either of these will be perfectly fine. If you don't want a Bluetooth one, alternatively the Fiio K3 I also recommend, because this thing's absolutely nice. It's tiny, like, it's absolutely tiny. It's got analog controls, it's got manual bass and gain control, USB audio, all the good stuff. It doesn't have a line in at all, which is kind of a pain, but you know, in fairness, it does have a ton of outs. So you've got coaxial out, line out, optical out on the back, headphone and balance on the front. It is a quite capable little machine. That's a Fiio K3, that's £85, and this is the Fiio BTR5, it's £90. Both of them really capable. I recommend either of them. They're perfect. And yeah, get your headphones and you will start absolutely hear the difference. Now the last thing that I do want to get into, whilst we're talking about how wide sound is, before I do go, is the reason why these are why they are. So you've got these which are in-ear buds. These are really closed in. These are pretty wide. But then you've got these which are open back headphones. Now what that literally means is whereas on the other pair, you know, there's a big plastic clasp over the back of this. This has nothing. There is literally air. If you shine a light, you will be able to see the speaker on the inside of this. But if you had a particularly powerful light, you'd actually be able to see it all the way through. They are completely open back, which means there is nothing on the back here. Now, whilst that might sound as quite a bad thing if you're listening in a loud room or with people around, yeah, it's a bad thing because everybody will hear what you're playing. But whereas, say, normal closed backs are like this, open backs are more like this. They are insanely wide, and because they're so wide, it allows them to be ridiculously detailed as well. Like, these headphones, obviously these aren't the best headphones, these are just the ones that I own because they were in my budget, and I've heard a lot of good things about them. They are ridiculously good headphones though, and what open back does is it gives you that extra detail. It gives you a huge wide soundstage that really, it's sort of how 3D it will sound. It will sound as if you are in the middle of a concert or something. It is ridiculously cool. And more to the point, when you're listening to some good, high quality music from either stuff that you bought yourself or you're streaming it on something like Tidal, trust me, these are your best friend. Like, that combo right there is quite literally top tier audio. I mean top tier audio for under 300 quid. These are 205, these are 85, 290 quid. Or if you want it to be completely wireless, and also turn these into a headset, because the cool thing about this, it has a microphone, which means this turns stuff into a headset. Well, once you know, you've now got a completely wireless, high fidelity headset that is unbeatable for under 300 quid. It's ridiculously cool. Now, there is a few small things that you may notice when you do get towards nice high-end audio, and that is this problem. They have long cables. This may not be a problem for some people. Some people might find it an absolute pain because obviously you've got long cables around. Not so bad with these coiled cables because, you know, they retract and they're a lot easier to manage. But the straight cables, aka where it is literally just a cable like that rather than a coiled cable like this, they can get quite unruly. And the K712s, these actually come with both a coiled and a straight cable out of the box, so you can actually choose, and it's detachable so you can decide which one you want to use. I use both but for different purposes. You know, this, it's HC280s, it doesn't have a removable cable, but it's a coil cable. That's a really nice one, and honestly I quite rate this, so I'm quite happy with it. But that is one thing that you better keep in mind if you do go into this, is that expect long cables. I don't know why, but they like to put ridiculously long cables on, or the other side to put ridiculously chunky cables on. It's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just a thing to be wary of. But yeah, so yeah, that's what I'm probably going to go ahead and call it for today. So, like the video, like, dislike it. Any thoughts, questions, leave a comment down below. Links to absolutely everything featured today will be in the description down below. Hit that subscribe button, notification bell for more content from me. As always, check out my Discord, Patreon, Twitch, and Facebook page, all which you can find in the description down below. Hit that subscribe button, notification bell, and I will catch you all in the next one. Until then, this is the 170th con, signing off. Stay safe out there, folks. I'll catch you next time. Until then, ta-ra.